welcome back to another book-ish video. I want to do more bookish videos on my channel besides my vlogs because I am an active reader. I love to read and I love to talk about the books that I read, and I feel like it goes hand in hand with me being a student and reading. And surely those of you who watch my videos do like to read too, and if not, then well, I don't know what you're doing here, but feel free to listen along. But I wanted to do a September wrap-up. I've never done a wrap-up video before, and I love watching bookish wrap-up videos of what people read in every month. So I wanted to do one, and here we are. It's my first one ever, so we'll see how this goes. But I read 4 books in September. It's kind of hard to find time to read my books while being a PhD student, so I try to read when I can. It takes me longer to finish books because, like, for me, I used to read like double that per month, like up to 10, 12 books a month before, and now I'm reading like down to 4, which is still fine because I know there's some people who don't even have time to read at all and they can only get to 1 book, and that's totally okay. But for me, I read 4 books, and I'm just gonna talk about them. So the first book that I finished in the month of September, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's October. Anyways, I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, or Maurier? I need to look up how to pronounce this, but this is what I read. This was a fiction, gothic, like thriller romance book. Kind of a mixture of all those, but I feel like the romance wasn't really emphasized, but it's about a girl, and I think she's in her early 20s, and she meets this man named Max de Winter, and she meets him in Italy, where she's from. She basically gets paid to be a friend to this woman, and she was having lunch with the woman, and they met Max during lunch, and they just really hit it off, I guess. And the woman that she was working for decided she wanted to move to the United States of America. And the main character, also unnamed, she doesn't have a name. They don't mention a name in the book for her. She's an unnamed main character, and she essentially decides that she doesn't want to move to the United States, and she tells Max about how she doesn't want to go there, and he's like, why don't you just marry me? And then we can move to where I'm from. And he's from Manderley. And she's like, yeah, I'll marry you. Let's go. And she has this whole like narrative in her head, like, oh, I'm gonna marry Maxim, and we're gonna go to Manderley, and I'm gonna have my own place, and it's gonna be like fairy tale, butterflies, unicorns kind of vibe is what this girl's thinking mentally. And then, you know, fast forward, they get to Manderley, and he is a widow. He had a wife that passed away, and at Manderley he has workers, like maids, people that work for him that run the house at Manderley, and they have a way of doing things. Like, for example, the main character, she wanted to, like, let's say she wanted to have breakfast in the library room. They're like, oh no, you usually use a library room for tea at 12 p.m. Like, they have a certain schedule for when each room is used, when you have breakfast, when you have tea, when you go out to the beach. Like, there's a whole schedule from like the deceased wife of how she ran the house. So everybody's used to that schedule. Like, even the dogs are used to that schedule. And they always mention like, oh, well, the old Miss De Winter, like, she used to do this and she used to do that. And I'm like, oh no, we only do this on these days. And the main character, the girl, she's like, why is everything about Rebecca? And Rebecca from the book, she is the late wife, the one who passed away. So the main character just is like living in the shadow of this late wife, and she's just like battling with that internally. And the story just progresses from there, and there is a twist, and it honestly caught me off guard. I didn't realize it, and I was shocked. And I think it was really good. I gave this 4.5 stars, I believe. I just feel like the pacing was really, really slow because the chapters are very long. They're long chapters. But besides that, I did really enjoy it, and I think it was good. So I would recommend this one. to read, especially for this time of the year. And now on to the second book that I finished. I finished Heartless Hunter, and this is basically about Rune, who is a witch. She finds out she's a witch after she hits puberty. I think you become a witch when you get your first bleeding, and you find out because your blood is like not red, it's black, I believe. So anyways, she's a witch and she's trying to save witches because she felt greatly impacted by her grandmother, who unfortunately she had to turn in for being a witch in order to save her own life, and her grandmother was totally okay with this. So she had to sacrifice her grandmother, and she's been living with that guilt her entire life. So anyway, she goes throughout her life feeling guilty about turning her grandmother into the blood guards, because the blood guards kind of manage the whole like village or whatever you call it, and they go out and they seek witches and they basically sacrifice them because witches are bad in their head. And for Rune, she wants to save the witches because she is a witch and she feels really bad and she wants them to, you know, survive. So she's known as the Crimson Moth. This is the Crimson Moth series. This is book 1, Heartless Hunter. And she's the Crimson Moth. That's her disguise, and she's saving the witches and stuff. But then of course there's the Witch Hunter, who is Gideon, and he is trying to find the Crimson Moth and to stop her from saving all of the witches. So you can only guess what happens between Rune and Gideon. They get together and stuff like that. But there's just more that happens in it. But it was a really fun story. I didn't feel too connected with the characters, but I do think the plot was interesting, and there were some twists in there that I personally couldn't predict. So I did like that. I did give it a 3.5 though, because I don't know, I just feel like I didn't love it as much as other fantasies that I've read with like forbidden romances and stuff. So I just like wasn't too wowed by the romance side of things, but the plot I think was like generally interesting. But I am looking forward to the second book. I can't remember, I think this is a 2-book series, just a duology, and I think that comes out sometime next year. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I think it was fun, but I know a lot of people genuinely really love this book. So take my review with a grain of salt, because reading is subjective, and don't let other people's opinions influence what you read. Or do, because I do that too, but it doesn't hurt to try it. Also, I read I don't remember what the series is called, but there's 4 books that are going to be in this series that I know of so far, and I read the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and then I finished the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore yesterday. Yesterday was September 30th, by the way. This is confusing, but anyways, I read the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I actually really like this one. It's about a girl, Jeannie, she basically inherits the Pumpkin Spice Cafe from her grandmother. So she moves to this town called Dream Harbor. It's a small little town, very close-knit, very Gilmore Girls vibes. Definitely gives like a classic cozy autumn story is what this gives. I really enjoyed it. I think it was fun. It was fast-paced. It wasn't serious. There wasn't much substance in it, but I don't care. Like, I just wanted a nice little palate cleanser in between reads, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun. And fun fact, the main male character, he has an alpaca named Harry Styles. And he has chickens that are named after pop stars like Taylor Swift, Selena Gomez, Lady Gaga, like artists like Beyonce. I don't know. I just thought that was a fun little quirk in this book, but it's so unserious. But yeah, this girl Jeannie, she moves here, she meets the grumpy farmer, and things go from there. But yeah, it was fun, and the cover is really cute. And finally, that leads me to the last book that I read in September, which is the second book to this series, the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, because I liked that. I forgot. I rated this one 3.75. Also, the spice level in this book, I would say it was a 4 out of 5. Like, there was a good amount of spice in here. And personally, I don't really care for spice, so I usually just skim over it to get to the plot. But it wasn't as heavy throughout the entire book. There was only like maybe 1 or 2 scenes, but they were long, I will admit. They were like a full chapter, so I will say that. But yeah. But that gets me to the Cinnamon Bun bookstore, and this one actually was way more spicier than the first one. Like, there was many chapters throughout this evenly that were very spice heavy. I would say this was like a 5 out of 5 for me and my personal standards. I skimmed through all of them because I don't care to know the details of their little fun time. I just want to get to the plot. I want to know what's gonna happen. So if you're one who really likes smut and romance, this book is for you. It's just not for me in terms of that. I give this a 3-star because it just wasn't my personal preference, but I feel like for others, they would like it more. But I still think the story overall was still cozy and I still liked it. But this one is about some characters that show up in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. It's about the girl who manages the bookstore, and she basically is turning 30 in 2 weeks time, and she's stressed because she hasn't done anything fun in her life. She doesn't really take risk or does anything for the fun of it. She's like a pretty standard, following the rules, just living her life as it is, like just doing the steps, doing the motions, and she really wants to have a fun time. And there's this guy, Noah, who is the fisherman. He kind of fairly recently moved into the town within the last few years. And he obviously has a crush on her. He goes to her bookstore every week to buy a new book that she recommends, and he reads it completely and comes back the following week to buy another book. And he's been doing that for like a year. So he clearly is into her, but she obviously doesn't realize that. And that's just kind of how it goes. But then randomly one day she notices that one of her romance books is in the wrong spot in her bookstore. And she like opens it. She notices like one of the pages are bookmarked, and she looks in and it's highlighted, and it highlights like a little phrase from a book telling her to like go to the beach and like something like that. Like little clues to go have a fun summer is what she's like taking it as. And she doesn't want to do it alone, and Noah happens to be there when she like stumbles upon the book, and he's like, I can be your fun summer partner. So they decide to go on the rest of the 2 weeks going up to her birthday to ensure that she has a super fun time. And that's basically what it is. But yeah, so these are all the books that I read in September. Surely there's one of them that would stand out to you. If you haven't read any of these, let me know. But yeah, let me know how many books you read in September. And if you didn't read any, that's totally fine. Whatever, live your life. But yeah, and if you do like these wrap up book videos, let me know. I'd love to film more as the months progress. I love to talk about books. And if you like to hear about somebody talking about books, then this is a great thing. Like the video, comment below, and I will see you all in my vlogs. And I'll see you all in the next bookish video too. Thank you.